Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the NeeveKnifeCo Offender. So if you don't know who Jared Neeve is, I mean, you probably do, but if you don't, he's Jared Neeve of Neeve's Knives, another content creator, knife reviewer. He does a whole bunch of different stuff on YouTube. I want to say this right at the beginning. Jared and I are friends, and we've been friends for a long time. So if you have perceived bias there, right, then I feel like it's a good idea to let you guys know that right up front. If you're not familiar with me or Jared, we're friends. We've been friends for a long time. I am reviewing his knife, and I'm going to be honest about it. But I think you as the viewer deserve to have that information right off the bat. So this knife, to my knowledge, is still available. I will link it down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. It's an interesting situation where we have a knife reviewer reviewing another knife reviewer's design, which he also did for me with my Excalibur design. I appreciate that. But Jared has more designs than me. This is one of 3 that he's got going on right now. This one has been carried and used very lightly over the course of, like 3 days. And that's typically what I do with a lot of this stuff. Me being a design reviewer and somebody who does not do a ton of testing, that's how this has been carried. And it does very well. It does exactly what it was designed to do, which is slice. And it's got a really interesting grain on it, but it's so thin behind the edge. Doesn't surprise me at all. With Jared being, the person he is and having the preferences he does. It is made to slice, and it's made to be friendly to touch up back here with that plunge grind. Couple of, problem areas for some people, sure, but it does look cool. We definitely got some form in there with the function. A lot of things to enjoy. I want to go over all of it with you guys today. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. The Offender, which is OEM'd by Bestech, by the way. 8 inches exactly. Yeah, 8 inches exactly. Blade length, curiously, 3.35. No, it's just over 3 1/4. It has a bit of an awkward visually. To me, it has a bit of a visually awkward blade to handle ratio and blade height to handle height ratio. But that's very subjective. You guys can tell me what you think down in the comments. Just over 3 1/4. Cutting edge length is about 3 1/8. Let's do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Excuse me. Up against the 80-10 and the 80-20.5. It's, I suppose, closer to the size of the 80-20.5, but it's definitely larger. It's just nowhere near the size of something like the 80-10. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. While I do, absolutely, I agree with myself about the visual ratios here. Let's remember the Spyderco PM2, arguably, like, if we were to poll like what's the absolute greatest EDC knife of all time, the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 would definitely be up there, if not right on top. And they have some of the most awkward visual ratios ever. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But yeah, it is actually pretty comparable ergonomically with the Spyderco PM2. You can see here there are some differences, but we have that same sort of forward choil area, right? And then the blade length or the cutting edge length is actually about the same, but the PM2 has a longer handle. It's very similar though. Okay, and then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. All right. How's the action of this knife? The action is incredible. I mean that. The action is phenomenal. Jared knows where to put things. I always want to top flip it. I'm just challenging myself. It can be done. I'm just not in the right position for it. It's meant to be front flipped like that. But Jared knows how to set this up. I mean, he's handled a bajillion knives, same as me. And we know what we like and what we don't like. I'm sorry, if you hear growling in the background, that is my lab. He is very upset that he cannot go outside today because the temperature is -2. He does not understand that, so you're going to hear some growling and you're going to hear some howling probably. Sorry about that. I can't I can't get him to be quiet. But anyways, yeah, Jared knows how to design a system like this. I think maybe I would have preferred a slight bit more on the lock side, a little bit of access, but truth be told, it is not hard to get in there in reverse flick. It's very easy. My finger finds that area immediately. And honestly, same with the front flick. It's not quite as easy as the rear flick. I think mainly it's designed to be reverse flicked or pinch open, rolled out, however you want to do that, right? Just keep your finger off the lock bar. And then front flipped. And it does all of that really, really well. Actually, the pivot action is quite nice. It's very smooth, even with the lock bar and the detent ball engaging with the face of the blade there. But if you move that lock bar all the way out of the way, wow, yeah, beautiful. And it also falls down and meets your thumb right inside of that forward choil, which is nice. I like that. I mean, I can have my fingernail stop on the blade on some knives, you know, that aren't set up like this, and it's fine, but I always prefer that I don't catch the sharpened edge even on my fingernail when I disengage it. So that's nice. It's not only not double clutch, but for those of us who like to disengage with one hand, there's no cutting edge coming down on any part of your finger, which is great. It feels like the detent is properly tuned for, you know, all the different systems that you would utilize to deploy this knife, and that's the way that it should be. It's also exactly what I would expect from a knife reviewer. Let's do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's really not all that. It's actually a little thinner, but it's also contoured, so it gives you that, you know, kind of filling out the hand feel without being excessively thick. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. No surprise here that while this is essentially, I mean, it is. It's not essentially. It is. It's a full-size knife. It also carries insanely well. This is a full-size knife that carries almost like a knife that's medium, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, it's compact. It looks like it's, you know, super tall, but it just doesn't feel like it's taking up so much room in the pocket, and it's probably because of the thinner, you know, frame. So folded up, it is about, unsurprisingly, it's a little shorter than something like the PM2. It's definitely longer than the Para 3, but this is right about the typical size of knife that I prefer to carry, and it carries more compact than that. So for me, it's very, very comfortable. If you prefer a much smaller knife, then it might feel slightly large to you. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What do we have for materials here? He has MagnaCut for the blade at 63 to 64. No surprise there. He's going to want to have not only the geometry, you know, for what he wants it to do and how he wants it to perform, but he's also going to have the HRC numbers that are appropriate for something like MagnaCut. So that's great. Like that a lot. We have titanium for the frame. We have, actually, to my knowledge, this is all titanium hardware, titanium clip, titanium backspacer, right? So it's all premium materials. Sorry. Goose is up there. Not super happy about having to be inside. He does not like to be inside. But anyways, let's weigh it. Is there milling for weight reduction? Yeah, there is. For a second I thought, what? It was almost invisible. But yeah, it's there. So the weight on this guy, I'm going to guess this weighs 4 to 4 1/4. Oh man, I'm good. I mean it. That was a guess. I don't always get those right. 4.2 ounces, no surprise. Not necessarily perfect ratios, but it's fine. Balance a bit back from the pivot. I can't say that I notice it too much. It's so comfortable that it's hard for me to go, yeah, it's kind of butt heavy. I mean, the whole thing just melts into your hand and feels really, really good. So not perfectly balanced, not perfect ratios, but you don't necessarily need that to have a good knife. It's important to some people, though, and that's why I pointed out. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive, very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. I'm going to guess this is all T8. Now, I don't know if Jared feels exactly the same way as I do about T6 hardware, or if he's just choosing T8, right? But something that everybody, I'm not going to say knife reviewers, I'm going to say everybody. Everybody likes a minimal disassembly experience, right? We want it to be straightforward. I want to be able to just put a bit in my driver and use the same one and not have to worry about anything free spinning, which I would be absolutely shocked to find out that, yeah, of course, it does no free spinning. There's almost certainly a D-shaped pivot barrel or something keeping the pivot captive there. We don't want to have to take out a bajillion screws, and ideally, you don't have to change out your bit. It doesn't surprise me that Jared has chosen T8 across the board, even for the pocket clip screw, which is one that is not totally necessary, but it's annoying when companies like, and T6 for the pocket clip. Like, why? Just do T8, right? So that's good. This is a ridiculously simple knife to disassemble. It's very, very friendly. If you're newer to knives, right, and maybe this is your first expensive knife, you'll be happy to know that doing maintenance on this is about as easy as it gets. 2 screws per side, 1 for the pocket clip, and 1 for the pivot. I mean, that's it. You don't even have to take off. The other's really just one side and pop the pivot out. But anyways, as long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness. I bet it'll be thin. What do you guys think? Not everybody loves or needs a super thin blade, but I'll tell you what, it really does help, especially when you get the edge geometry right. It really does help with that slicing, the slicing feel goods. 116 thousandths, no surprise there. Do we have anything else? Did we weight it? We did the hardware check. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes. So for this design, and Jared has other designs. For this design, he's chosen a Harpoon compound recurve Tanto. He calls it something much similar much simpler on the website. It's like a dual grind Harpoon or something, and it's probably better wording because it's less syllables. You guys know me; I love extending things unnecessarily. But yeah, so this is a grind that looks cool. The first time I ever saw this grind was on a Hinderer, I want to say it was an XM24, an old custom, and Rick Hinderer called it a Hellfire grind. Now, it didn't include the Harpoon, but I've always had this kind of special place in my heart for this grind because it looks cool, it looks nasty. I personally wish that the blade was a little bit taller and a little bit longer, but it doesn't have to be, right? It's still super cool. This does slice very well. A recurve, depending on what it is that you're doing, might not make any difference at all, or might make the job substantially easier. I honestly don't know. Like I was using this to just cut some cardboard outside, and no surprise, it went through it like a laser beam. Ridiculous, stupidly thin behind the edge. It's insane. The dual grind out here, or the compound grind, allows there to be more material behind the tip. It's already a pretty thin tip, so I think that was probably a good idea. Personally, because I'm such a novice sharpener and I don't like to sharp, I don't like to have to change, and accommodate for the 2 different edges. I like it when it's continuous, but I can understand why he did it this way, because doing a recurve, then you just end up with a whole flowy recurve, right? So, what's my point? Some people are going to love this and love it for how it looks and not care. Maybe their master sharpeners are not really going to care, right? Some people are not going to use this enough to really have to deal with sharpening it. And some people, it's going to be, no, because I don't want to have to mess with the 2 different, edges. It's entirely up to you how you feel about that. Yeah, you will have to sharpen this edge and this edge separately. In this area right here, unless you're very, very careful, will probably slowly start to round out. No surprise that he's made it as easy as possible back here in the plunge grind to maintain that and not have a smile. I would be shocked if Jared ever designed a knife with a bad plunge grind, right? So yeah, no surprise there. Unless I'm mistaken, I think there's really only one version of this available. Maybe he does have a DLC version and I just didn't see it. But this satin machine ground blade and then the blue hardware with the standard tumbled titanium frame is the version that's available right now. I would be shocked if that's the only version he ever releases. I know Jared likes to do different colors and things like that. So I bet, if not this one, then maybe a version in the future would have some other. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I just remembered he's got multiple hardware sets that are available for for order with this as well. It's been a bit since I did the unboxing, so I forgot about that. But yeah, you can pre-order different sets of hardware, right? I guess as far as the knife coming with a different aesthetic, right? Like an anodized frame and different anodized hardware. I would venture to guess maybe in the future he would consider doing something like that. But if you do want to change out the hardware and give it different colors, I think he has like a bronze, a green, and like a purpley magenta kind of. I think those are the sets there. And then as soon as those sets become available, you'll have, I think you can pre-order them for like a penny, and then when they become available, you know, pay the rest of the price there. But I think they're also pretty inexpensive as well. So that's cool. So if you don't want to go with the blue jeans ano, you have the option to go with some other hardware there. Ergonomically, this is stupidly comfortable. It is ridiculously comfortable. The edges are all knocked down all the way around. The radius frame is really, really nice. Jimping extends all the way into the harpoon notch, making the lock-in between the index finger and the thumb absolute. Now, admittedly, I don't find myself in too many situations where I have to hold the knife like this. But it is super satisfying when this is done perfectly. And I mean this is done perfectly. It kind of gives me that same feeling as the Microtech Stitch. It's obviously not exactly the same profile, but that big arrowhead kind of, it opens up like this, one into the choil and one to the back of that harpoon notch or that arrowhead notch on the stitch blade. And it's just so stupidly comfortable. It just feels right. This is kind of giving me that same feeling, but I love that he ran the jimping all the way out behind the harpoon notch. That's nice, and it's perfect. It's that perfect lock-in kind of Spyderco jimping. Really, really nice. Like that a lot. You actually have the same jimping back here on the slightly raised back spacer. So yeah, cutting with this is really fun. It's a joy, and it's also, it put an additional smile on my face because I'm like, I can, you know, this is the experience that Jared wanted people to have. Like pushing this blade into material, and it's just such, there's so little resistance, excuse me, but at the same time the knife looks cool, right? So it's fun to use, it's fun to look at, it's fun to deploy. That's, I mean, why would we expect anything different from a knife reviewer, right? So it feels good. We do not have a mounting position for lefties. Maybe in the future, you know, I saw in the comments people were like, oh, Neeves, no left, and yeah, it's like, yeah, you know, probably should have done a left-handed thing. But I also would be shocked to find out that Jared has absolutely zero plans to accommodate for lefties. It can be a bit tricky when you're working with a company like Bestech, who really likes to charge you for every last little teeny tiny thing, right? So I would venture to guess it's just, it probably was well, obviously it's costly to do lefty, you know, stuff like that, but it would have been nice to have a second pocket, just like a mounting position, and then like a second curved pocket clip that you could buy. I mean, he did the hardware sets. It would have been cool. So I have faith that it's a bummer that we can't. I'm not saying it's like, who cares that there's no left? Of course. It's like I always say, we want to accommodate for lefty people. It's a bummer that that's not included on this knife. I also have faith that Jared in the future would release something for left-handed people, whether it's a left-handed version of this knife or lefty mounting positions for pocket clips, something like that. It would be cool. It's just a bummer that there's no mount spot. So even if you wanted to create lefty pocket clips for this, it wouldn't matter, right? So it's kind of a bummer. Left-handed people tell me all the time, they're like, yeah, it's no big deal. We just put the knife in our right-hand pocket and use it like a right-hand knife. And that's fine if that's the way you feel. I think that's fine if you've made that work for you. I also feel like, you know, it would be nice if everything that you wanted was actually set up to be optimized for you, right? But anyways, this will affect left-handed people, obviously not right-handed people. The carry depth of this is perfect. The cant, I guess, is what we refer to as a pocket clip. Very, very good. The retention on the clip is about exactly the way that you would want it. In and out of the pocket's very easy. We have a nice big lump of material under here, and it goes up. So in and out of the pocket is insanely easy. He has the relief cut on the inside, which aesthetically I've found many of you enjoy. I like the way that the relief cut looks on the outside, but I think I'm in the minority there. But yeah, this works, and you don't have to worry about the clip landing on the relief cut because it's on the inside, right? So that's cool. We have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, and Looks good, feels good. It does exactly what you'd want it to do. The stop pin, I believe no, it's right here. It's in its traditional place. So there's the closed position, and then deep shouldering for the open position. Absolutely no blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick, no pivot lash. Very smooth and consistent here. D10 is exactly what you would want it to be. And we have perfect centering. Yeah, we have perfect centering. No detent lash. Did I say that? Your lockup percentage right here. And then let's take a look at the actual engagement. Does it not? We're not. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So you can see right there, that little gray spot. You're probably looking at 25 to 30% engagement, which is plenty. So again, we have MagnaCut, which it actually says right here. This is a really nice way to do this, by the way. So then you don't have words on the blade. I know that bothers him. I also think putting his logo on the pivot is a nice move because it's easy. I don't know if you agree with me, but in my opinion, it's easier to look at a logo on a pivot than it is on a blade. It just looks ridiculous. When it's on the blade, it makes me think of like NASCAR sponsorships. It's just insane. I just don't want to look at that, you know. But anyways, the knife is really, really good. And as I stated, Bestech and Bestech's not the only offender. I didn't mean to make that joke. There are a lot of companies who've figured out, you know, like there's a market for like, you know, getting designs out there, and they've set this up to where they cannot lose. You know, even when working with something like Jared, like they don't give an enormous amount of room. Looking at a knife like this has a lot of elements that I would expect to see in the 250 to 300 range. This is right at the tippy top of that at $300. I think Jared did everything he could to bring an awesome product to the table and give it, you know, great elements like the super thin blade and the MagnaCut, right, and the ease of manipulation, all of that. It's at the tippy top of that, and while I wish it was a little less expensive, I can also completely and totally understand why it is the price that it is. I have heard from so many people, Bestech just does not give people a ton of room when doing this stuff. And so I think that Neeves priced it the best he could. I think he could have easily gone up to $350 and said, whatever, I'm a popular YouTuber, people will buy it. And I don't believe that he did that at all. I think that he thought, how, you know, low can I get it to make it fair for everybody? And so that's where we are. So while I think an ideal price tag, probably like if we're comparing apples to apples and other things that I find to be roughly similar, you know, made by a Chinese OEM, premium manufacturing, tolerances, MagnaCut, titanium, all of that stuff, right? $275 probably would have been just about right where I expect it, so I can't get too mad at $300. Overall, I think that this is legitimately a very recommendable knife, and I'm going to put it in my recommended knives playlist. Then again, you know, for some people, they're going to say Metal Complex and Neeves are friends, so of course he's going to recommend it. I'll let you think what you want, but I legitimately do like this knife, and I legitimately do recommend it. So that's pretty much it. I'll link this down in the description, and you guys can check it out if you want to. Thanks again to Jared for sending this in and letting me share it with everybody and share my honest thoughts, which, by the way, he did say, please use this and say whatever you want. Jared did not, there was very little direction. He's like, here you go, use it and say, you know, give people your honest thoughts. That was it. That's what I expect, you know, whether you're a company or an individual, you want people to be able to give their honest opinions and their honest criticisms, right? That's the way to do that. So I appreciate that, Jared. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.